So I guess the last thing I want to acknowledge is that a couple of things in terms of the principles that we heard out there and that are going to drive the recommendations and drive this report. One is, as I mentioned already, locally driven and bottom up. We were taken by the incredible creativity and innovation that exists all around this country, whether it be in youth programs in the Santa Monica Mountains or in terms of restoration work in Indian tribal lands in the Northwest, or in the amazing rural-urban partnerships that exist in the Chesapeake Bay with Baltimore and Washington, D.C., or whether the great collaboration in the Northern Everglades between ranchers and sportsmen, or in the work that the Army Corps of Engineers is doing in St. Louis along the Mississippi. I mean, I could go on for an hour on all the things that we heard. There's amazing stuff going on out there. We don't need to be coming up with a top-down, here's what we're going to do, here's what you're going to do, but it's going to be much more driven by what locals, states, and individuals bring to us. Second, as I said, we're going to be striving to be much better at what we do. We're going to be better coordinated. We're going to clean up our systems and our processes, and so that we can make the delivery of our dollars and our services much more effective. And finally, we're going to rely on partnerships. Given the realities of the budget that Derek's already acknowledged, you've heard the chatter in Washington about what the House would like to do with the budget, to roll it back. We're talking about, if they're rolling it back to 2006 levels, like they were talking a few days ago, we're looking at 30 or 40% reductions in force in some of the agencies. I don't really think that's going to happen, but we have to rely on working with local and state governments, with tribal governments, with individuals, with private companies to get that done. That's a reality. That's a smart way to do business anyway, but it's a reality of how we're going to do business in the future. And I think that I want to thank Dr. Crompton for his words about having to think about this in a different way. And the Secretary heard a presentation some months ago about economics and outdoor recreation, economic in terms of what we do in Interior, and he called up and he gathered all the economists that were in the building in his office in the next hour. He's very on it. Bob's probably been the receiving end of one of these before, but he just says, all right, I want to talk about what we're doing in the economy. And he said, I want to get every economist that's in the building right now in my office in an hour. And so there was like 20 people that showed up. And then a week later, we had like 75 economists. And the Secretary, first of all, I think 72 out of 75 had never met the Secretary or been in his office. So they were thrilled by that. And he gave him a charge. He says, I want to have your focus and efforts geared towards telling me what the Department of Interior and more broadly our mission contributes to the economy of the United States. And within a few months we had a report which is out there on our website, and it was really instructive because it goes to the point that Doctor was making earlier about we need to make this relevant to the people of the United States and to the policymakers, and more, very importantly right now, to Congress, because they're not necessarily seeing what we do at Interior or what the Forest Service does or this part of the Corps' mission through the lens that we all can see it through, or the multiple lenses we can see it through. So I think we have our work cut out for us. And the only thing I would add to the doctor's point is that these are sustainable jobs. These are not jobs that are going to be exported to China. These are homegrown jobs, and if we do it right, they're jobs that will be there year in and year out, and probably growing as we take care of our natural resources. So what's next here? Where are we headed from here? There will be a rollout of this report, as I said, sometime in February. We will continue to engage the public and probably drill down in additional listening sessions. I can't tell you where they're going to be or how many they're going to be or what they're going to be about, but as we get out there, we're going to need to go back out and go down a couple of layers as we think about these things, whether it be on how to more intelligently invest the dollars that we have in stateside land water conservation fund. What do we do to balance some of the needs on our public lands? What's the best way to work with communities on increasing recreational access along rivers, lakes, and streams? How do we create a 21st century civilian conservation corps-like program for today? It's going to meet today's needs as opposed to what we were doing in the 30s. So those are the kind of things we'll continue to engage you all on. I think that the health issue will be another one that I'm sure will be an ongoing issue. The Park Service has already committed to that. Second, we will be rolling out some new programs that you will be able to see in the budget. And I hope that you will take the time well, I won't take the time to read the budget, but that would be way too much to ask. But to look for those things, and that will be an important, I think, indicator of how well we are committing to the agenda that we're laying out in this report. The budget may actually come out a little before or a little after the report's released, we're not sure, but it'll be right around the same time. And so take a look at that, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what we're going to be able to do. And I would ask you, in whatever capacity you can, and whatever ability you have, is to get behind this initiative and keep it going. It will only be a success if the collective interest in this room and beyond decide to continue to push for this thing, whether it be the policies that we identify, the new programs, or some budgetary resources that we'll need to make it a reality. We're going to need your help from here on out to keep the momentum going. I mean, I think Derek and some of you all who participated, it was a pretty amazing thing. I think we're told it may have been, it clearly is the largest public engagement exercise of the Obama administration. And a lot of people have told us it may be one of the largest that's happened in many administrations, certainly for this type of thing. And so to have that many sessions, to have that much engagement on the web, have that much ongoing interest, we have to take advantage of that momentum and keep it going. So I would just say stay tuned. And I guess the final point I want to make is this, that we have, the tragedy that happened in Tucson a few weeks ago was indicative of really the reaction to that tragedy was indicative of the political strife that we have in this country and the division that we have in this country. And hopefully Congress, and administration, and the political parties will lay down their arms at least somewhat as we go forward. One of the things about the America's Great Outdoors Initiative is that it is nonpartisan. It didn't matter where we went. Nobody cared if somebody was a Democrat or Republican. People in this country share a passion for the outdoors, of all political stripes, of all ages, of all ethnicities, of all geographic regions, urban, rural, rich, poor. It doesn't matter. Everybody in this country cares about this for a variety of reasons. And I think that this agenda has the opportunity to bring people together in this country around a common theme, where Republicans care just as much as Democrats, and Democrats care just as much as Republicans. So thank you again for having me here today. Derek, thanks for inviting me, and I would be happy to take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Bruce.
Well, thank you for your leadership, not only in Colorado, but in the country, in this effort that I think we all greatly appreciate. And I did go to one at the White House, and I was involved in Colorado and Utah, so I want to let you know that it has been a huge catalyst for some initiatives. I think Susan, Oliver, and I have some very specific things related to Colorado and some of the points that we earlier would like to talk about. But I also wonder about this interdepartmental cooperation, whether it's the Department of Defense or the Health and Human Services or the Department of Education. Are you reaching out to those departments and bringing them into the conversation and making them a part of dealing with the America's Great Outdoors?
It's a great question. The question about whether or not we're bringing in the other federal agencies to be a part of this conversation. And the answer is yes. One specific example I'll give you is education. And the work that the Park Service does around environmental education, but also BLM and the Forest Service and Fish and Wildlife and others. We've really never had any kind of relationship with the Department of Education around that. And they have a lot of money. So we should be focusing on how we can have some of that come our direction to do the things we care about. And as things are working in Washington these days, Secretary Duncan and Secretary Salazar play basketball together with the President from time to time, and they've created a really good working relationship. And so the meeting that we had over at Secretary Duncan's office a few months ago was the first such meeting that ever happened. And one of his senior advisors is now working very closely with the Park Service developing ideas around curriculum and things like that, that we can really build on. And we think we have an opportunity to develop and cement a really good relationship with them. Same with defense. You know, the Army Corps of Engineers is sort of the favored part of from the recreational community standpoint of DoD, but defense has amazing opportunities. They do great work on habitat restoration. They have great hunting and fishing access, other recreational programs. You know, I worked in California, and the work that the bases we're doing there with communities around a whole host of issues is huge. And I don't know what number they are, but I think after interior and agriculture, they're the third largest landowner in the country. And so we need to bring them on board. Health and Human Services, you know, Derek and some of you were involved in that session in Chicago, hugely significant that they not only wanted to participate, but they insisted on leading that session. And they took ownership of it, and they, you know, by all accounts, were in a great session and maintained a close working relationship. Derek alluded earlier that we have given over our star Park Service employee, Ellie Kelly, to the Let's Move Outside office over in the White House. And so Allie is over there on a 6-month detail working to make sure that that program really develops some legs and gets off the ground. So she, that's part of our commitment to make sure that we maintain that connection. So it's an ongoing effort. I got to tell you, it's, the work that we're doing with agriculture is daily, and so I'm not worried about that. But the other ones that are relatively new to the game will require ongoing commitment, but I think we've got it. It's back here.
Can you expand a little bit more on the concept of access, kind of some of the things that fall under that big A?
Sure. In terms of river and waterway access, one of the things we've heard a lot about, and I think we're going to try to deal with in some meaningful ways, is around access to those things. So whether it be the concept of a blue way or a river trail, where are you familiar with that concept? So people have access to the river so that they can get on and get off and picnic and go to the bathroom and park their car, whatever they need to do. And there are a lot of places where you'd have to travel 20 miles, which is going to be too far. And depending upon the law, the land in that state, there are going to be limitations about what you can and can't do in terms of wading or being on the shoreline. So we think we need to, that's an area that we've heard a lot about and want to try to be helpful in dealing with. In terms of public land, it was, as I said earlier, soup to nuts. We heard from people all over the place that they want to, in some cases, want to constrict access, sometimes want to open up access, but we heard mostly around opening up access and making that access more responsible in terms of how it's managed and to make sure we don't get things out of control. Now, my friend Bob Abbey, head of the BLM, we were here for later this week, reminds me that he's got one land manager for every 1 million acres. Bob, is that right? Thereabouts. I mean, that's a huge order for a land manager to be effective at knowing what's going on in those 1 million acres at any one time. So some of this is going to be a function of the resources that the agencies bring to the table. And I think the other part of access that I mentioned earlier is having people have access within an urban context to get safely to the place that they want to go, to a park, to a piece of open space, to a forest, to a trail. And so there are programs that Transportation Council calls Safe Streets, Safe Cities, and it's a focus on providing really some sort of urban trails to get to and from these places, either schools or parks.